I'm Sasha Polako-Saransky, Deputy Editor at Foreign Policy, and in my new show, I bring together diplomats, journalists, academics, and activists from across the globe.
I think it's an act of war. Lots of countries go to war.
And give them the chance to debate serious issues that really get to the heart of the world's biggest dilemmas.
That's not true. Look, diplomacy has been going on.
That's Counterpoint, a new podcast from Foreign Policy in partnership with the Doha Forum. Available now, wherever you get your podcasts.
How many glasses of wine have you had, Sean?
I don't count in glasses, Justin.
Right. That is also a very middle-aged thing. Like, I'm the same way. Like, I have it's one glass if it's a bottle, right? Because
or a box, whatever.
Well, if you're having one box of wine a night, we should probably chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, agreed. No, not that bad yet.
Yet.
Well. Welcome to Deep Dive with me, Sean C. Fettig. And happy holidays. We're deep in the holiday season, and that means that we here at Deep Dive are taking a break for one episode from the shit show that is the world. And instead, today, we're bringing you our second annual Favorite Things of the Year episode. And to help me with that is friend of the pod and pretty much lifelong friend of mine, Justin Hentges. We'll talk about some of our favorite books, movies, music, experiences, etc. from the past year. But since we're real people with real lives, we can't constantly be keeping up with the newest, best, and shiniest. The rules for our favorites of the year are not limited to things produced, created, or released this year, just that we experienced them this past year. But before we go there, I want to acknowledge that in many ways, it's been a tough year. Our politics seem off the rails, completely broken. The outcome of the election is disappointing for many of you, perhaps even existential. The state of the world is precarious and uncertain. It's tough. And I've been thinking about how to send an uplifting message to y'all and ultimately realize that at this time of year, there may be a better messenger than me to shine a little light. So I asked some North Pole elves to send me a Christmas message of hope and resilience that could lift us all up, but especially some of the most vulnerable among us that might feel particularly endangered and targeted right now. And so here's what they sent me. It was a quiet Christmas Eve in the North Pole, but Santa was restless. As he reviewed his list for the 100th time, a soft glow appeared on his ancient desk. It was the golden snowflake, a magical signal from the world below, alerting him that the season's spirit was dimming in many hearts. Santa donned his coat and went straight to his workshop, where the elves were just wrapping up the last presents. "We've got work to do, my friends," he announced, his voice warm but determined. "This year, we need to deliver more than gifts. We need to deliver hope." Using the magical dust of cheer, Santa and the elves crafted enchanted snow globes. Each globe captured a moment of magic, a mother hugging her child, friends laughing over cocoa, a stranger lending a hand to someone in need. Santa infused each one with his most powerful spell, a tailored message straight to the heart. That night, in a small apartment, Anna and her family gathered in silence around a tiny Christmas tree. As immigrants, they lived in fear every day, unsure if they'd be forced to leave the home they had built. Suddenly, a glittering snow globe appeared on their kitchen table. Tentatively, Anna shook it. A gentle, soothing voice spoke. "You are stronger than you know. This land is better because of you, and love will protect your dreams." As the family held each other close, the globe glowed, filling the room with warmth and courage. Miles, a trans boy, had spent weeks hiding in his room, weighed down by cruel taunts and hateful words from politicians and bullies alike. When he discovered the glowing globe on his nightstand, he gave it a shake. Santa's voice echoed softly. "You are perfect as you are. The world needs your light, Miles. Be brave. You're not alone." For the first time in days, Miles smiled as a shimmering aura surrounded him, a shield of magic that made him feel safe and seen and valuable. And in a small town in Minnesota, Kayla stared at her college acceptance letter to Florida State. It was everything she had dreamed of, but fear gripped her. What if the state wasn't safe for her anymore? The future felt dark and uncertain. Then she noticed a snow globe on her bookshelf. As she turned it, the tiny figures danced and Santa's voice spoke. Your dreams matter, Kayla. Go boldly where you feel safest. You'll find allies and kindness there. Kayla felt her resolve return, her heart swelling with the courage to step forward. From bustling cities to snowy countrysides, people found their globes and heard Santa's words. The world may feel heavy, but joy, kindness, and love are still here. You are part of the magic, regardless of what others might tell you and how they might treat you. And as laughter and gratitude and calm and peace filled the air, the golden snowflake glowed brighter than ever, reminding Santa that even the smallest sparks of cheer and kindness can light up the darkest of nights. And that's something we would all do well to remember this holiday season and moving forward. And so we here now at Deep Dive gift you our own snow globe of our favorite things of 2024. So make some hot chocolate, light a fire legally, round up some friends, some family, grab a blanket, curl up, and get some inspiration for things to do, listen to, read, or watch in your next year. All right, if you like this episode or any episode, please give it a like, share, and follow on your favorite podcast platform, and or subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. And as always, if you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, or want to let us know about some of your favorite things of the year, please feel free to email me at deepdivewithsean@gmail.com. Let's do a deep dive. Hey, Justin, how are you?
Hey, Sean, I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm well as well. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
It's been a year.
It has been a year. That is correct.
Yes.
Are you excited for the holidays, Sean?
It's funny you asked that because I feel like this is a red flag. You may regret asking this. Earlier today, somebody asked me, because we're going to Palm Springs later this week for, I think I'm going to say a well-needed vacation. But one of my friends was like, are you excited? And my response was, and I didn't think twice about it, was I don't get excited about anything these days. And after I sent it, I was like, oh, that's kind of dark.
That is a little dark, but you know what? It's good to be truthful, and you know, maybe we can find something that has been exciting for you or will be exciting for you as we chat.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's not that I mean any specific thing.
Right.
You know, it's just, I'm a happy person. I have joy in my life. I just don't think I get excited. I hear that word and I think children, or like myself when I was 20 and I think I was overly excitable. You would know, was I?
I was just thinking back to, if you were overly excitable when we were young, what the hell was I? I was.
Oh, no, you were very.
Yes. So
this is not news to you, right?
No, not at all. But I can't even think of a word to describe me after that.
It's one of the reasons I enjoyed hanging out with you, because I always got from people like, oh my God, you're always over the top. And I was like, have you met Justin?
Perfect. Oh, as I'm sitting here drinking tea out of a once a princess, always a princess mug from, Disney World. I may be a little over the top.
I'm having wine, so we are on different planes right now.
Well, I've been fighting a cold, so I'm trying to take it easy today.
Understood.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some of our favorite things over the last 365 days.
All right, let's do it.
Where do we start? Did you take trips?
I did. I took a lot of trips this year.
Okay. Well, tell me your favorite one then.
Oh, well, my favorite one was, actually, for different, I had a number of trips, a lot of work trips, but two personal trips that were really great. One was to Hawaii with my partner, and we got to go to the Big Island, which was amazing, and then got to see my family, who we all haven't seen each other for a couple of years, so it was nice to all get together. And then in the summer, I got to go to Sweden and Iceland for a few days to see the Bruce Springsteen concert in Stockholm. Mm-hmm. A friend of mine texted me and said, hey, do you want to go to Stockholm to see Bruce? And I said yes, and then flew over there for a few days, and it was just absolutely amazing.
How was Bruce?
How is Bruce? Bruce is, if I had 1/10 of his energy at my age now, I would be so happy. Like, it is amazing. He and the entire group are just fantastic. The energy in the crowd is just amazing. The energy from the stage is amazing. And it's especially, I think, cool to see a concert like that outside of the United States, because you have so many different people that are going and just being wrapped up in that, and everybody's friendly and nice and fun, and you have Spanish people dancing, you have Irish people, you have the Swedish, you have the weird Americans that go over there, right? It's a lot of fun. There's a whole culture I have discovered to folks that travel around to follow Bruce on his tour, and it's a pretty neat place.
So I know that you do this. I know that you've traveled to other countries to see, specifically to see concerts or shows.
Yes.
And when I was in Dublin a couple of years ago, I had that in the back of my mind. I was by myself. I was there for a week, and it escapes me who was playing there, but there was someone, why can't I think of her name, that I really wanted to see. And so I actually got a ticket, and I was like, I'm going to do what Justin does. WWJD, what would Justin do? And I wrestled with it the entire week prior to the concert, and then I bailed. I didn't go.
Oh,
I don't even, I'm too old to give a shit. But for some reason I was like, no, I don't know. I don't know the city. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gone to concerts, with friends, and I've gone by myself. It's a different experience with by yourself, but you just kind of got to open up and be like, hey, I'm going to go see this. And usually concerts in the other countries are cheaper. So I don't know. It's fun. You should try it. Next time you're in Dublin or someplace else, go to a concert.
I always plan to, so we'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
What about you? You did traveling this year. Where all have you gone?
Yeah, we did go to a few places. And honestly, the place that I did the south of France on the Riviera, and Berlin. That was a trip that I did. And then together we went to Venice earlier in the year. And I loved Venice. I didn't expect to like it, but I did. We went in March. Have you been there?
Yes. Yeah. I was there a number of years ago. And we were there in March as well. It was beautiful.
First of all, I didn't know what to expect, to be completely honest. But all I had ever heard from people is it's overrun. And I don't like crowds. So yeah. I was apprehensive, but it wasn't that busy. It took me a few days to actually realize there's no roads in Venice. The roads are essentially the canals.
Right.
And which is cool because ambulances, police, all the products that they're selling are coming in and out of those canals. But something was like, as I was walking around, I was like, there was something that I couldn't put my finger on. And then one day it just hit me. I was like, there's no roads here, and there's all these back alleys. And there were plenty of times I was walking alone in an alley. It wasn't overrun with people. I mean, in the main hub, it was super busy, but I just thought it felt like a world unto its own, really.
Yeah.
And so it was very charming. And I would go back in a heartbeat, but I'm sure it's just like a restaurant. Never go back a second time if you like something.
I don't know if I've ever heard that thing about a restaurant, never go back a second. But yeah, no, well, Venice, especially when you're not, I've heard it's like if you're there in the height of the tourist season in summer, it is ridiculous. But yeah, my experience was very similar, like getting done with dinner and then walking through these, streets and there's nobody around. And it was very otherworldly.
And it's uncommon. I've been lucky enough or fortunate enough to travel quite a bit in my life.
Yes.
To the point where now when I go someplace, I'm like, oh yeah, that felt like Puerto Vallarta, or that felt like Auckland, which I think is really cynical place to get. But Venice was a place that surprised me. There was no corollary to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So when you're on these travels, what have you been reading?
So I read a lot. I would hope so. I would hope so with your podcast. You would read the books. Yeah. There's a trick to that, just an FYI. But that's for another day. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of love this about myself that I read like 4 or 5 books at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And Part of it is just overzealous. I'm just like so excited about the next book. See, there's something I get excited about.
All right, there you go.
But part of it is I don't have the attention span anymore to just stick with one thing all the way through all the time. So I'm fascinated if I do. So there's 2 books that I read this year, because of course there's not just one, that I could not put down and read through in a couple of days. The first was, it didn't come out this year. It came out maybe 6-7 years ago, but I don't know if you've read it, Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow.
I have not read that.
So you know what it's about?
It's hitting something in my brain saying, you know what this is about, but I can, for the life of me, cannot actually think about it.
So, I mean, at its heart, it's really kind of a blow-by-blow unraveling of Harvey Weinstein and uncovering of what was going on.
Yeah.
But it pulls in the Me Too movement, and Donald Trump shows up quite a bit. But it was not an easy read. So one of my friends read this right when it came out, and she had told me at the time, like, this is an unbelievable book. And I was like, yeah, it's on my list, right? And then as I was reading it, I was telling her, like, this book is unfucking believable. And she's like, I know. And it's because I had literally, you get the broad strokes of the Me Too movement. It's horrific. But when you read this book and you see just the depths of depravity that some of these people will go to, and it's not just people, it's the industry, it's media and the news industry and whatever Trump is in, I don't know, real estate, these industries and the people that have power and money, not only what they can get away with, but what they do get away with is just like the way that they treat people. We can stick with like Harvey Weinstein, but the things that happen and the things that they make happen, if one of those happened in my life, it would be something I would never forget and I would talk about.
Right.
And these are things that they do on a regular basis, on a daily basis. It's just, I had no idea how horrific it is. So that's one book. And then,
the Christmas episode took a real turn there, didn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't know that it's going to get much better, but I would say the best book I read this year was called V13, Chronicle of a Trial by Emmanuel Carrère. Yeah, again, this is dark. But so do you remember in 2015, the terrorist attacks in Paris, at the Bataclan Theater and at those cafes, all in the same night? And the bombing at that soccer stadium?
Yes.
So this guy, Emmanuel, is a reporter who went to the trial, and he writes a book that's essentially a chronicle of the trial. By telling the story of the trial, he peppers it with a lot of context as to the history of some of the victims and the history of the perpetrators and the history of Islam and the history of French legal system. The way he does it is so eloquent and beautiful and heartrending and empathetic, and it seems super heavy. I mean, it is, but he writes it in like vignettes that you could read one in like 3 minutes. And I wonder now, even as I'm saying it out loud, if he did that deliberately, knowing the like weight of the content and the weight of the topic, that you couldn't ingest it, too much of it at one time, for as horrific as it is. And it's just heartrending reading some of this stuff from all sides. But it's so beautiful, and like it actually does remind me of the humanity that we have that I sometimes lose sight of.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I give this a 5-star review.
Oh, we're doing stars now. Okay.
Yeah, sure. So keeping that in mind, what are you reading?
So one book that I read recently, but I think it came out a couple of years ago as well, was by Naomi Oreskes and Eric Conway. I hope I said their names right. Which is The Big Myth. How American business taught us to loathe government and love the free market. And that was a very interesting kind of exploration of just different ways that, the business has influenced the way we think about business versus government, right? And we think about, you saw this in many of our discussions over the last, year about we need to run government like a business. We need to be more efficient. We need to do, this and that. And so this kind of explains that history throughout many, many, many decades. And it's fascinating to me to read that and then to think about how ingrained that has been, even for somebody like me who I work in the public sector, and yet I still have those thoughts. And so that was a fascinating kind of exploration of that, and how that, the Madison Avenue, marketing piece can play into amongst, other more nefarious things that some of our folks did beforehand. So that was interesting and kind of a downer at the same time. We also wrote a book about climate change and, the business world's undercutting of the science of climate change and undercutting of those, institutions or those scientists. So it was a really good book, but also, I didn't walk away feeling like, woohoo, everything's going to be happy. But the other one that I read, and I actually did it on Audible, which it's the Viola Davis's autobiography, Finding Me, which was just a really powerful book. The way that she wrote it, the way that she read it, her own life story was just very, I keep saying powerful, but it was just very powerful. And the thing in the end, like, she's standing very proud as who she is. And as I was reading it, obviously having a very different lived experience than she has had, it also, the way that she wrote it, you could see how all of these things that have happened, how all of the, the choices that either were made for her, that she made, and the same with how choices are made for us, or the choices we make, how they lead us to someplace. And when you're there, you just have to stand there and be like, this is who I am. And this is who I am. And so that stuck with me, because it was just such a good story, even though it was, it's true, but the way that she told it was a good story, and it kind of brought you in to it, even the hard pieces that she talked about. But you left feeling like powerful, like, yeah, we all have our stories, and we all have gone through some stuff, and we all get to, we get to stand in our truth. And so that was a great book.
You know what I want to ask, because I'm always fascinated how we get to the books we get to. And so, like, you're talking about this, and I'm thinking, how did I not hear about this? How did you find this book?
You know what? I think I was just, so I walk my dog at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I usually listen to an Audible or a book on tape. For the old folks that are listening, remember tapes, right? But you can cut that part out, right? Okay. But I think I was scrolling through the library, just like, what could be a book to read. And I had heard, I've heard clips of hers before in interviews and stuff, where she's talked about, her, negotiating for the wage that she should be getting, or the money she should be getting, given her skill set and what people that are in that same, skill set are getting, all of that kind of stuff. And so she just seemed like a very interesting person. And so I found it, and just really loved it. The other thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to read books by folks that, like, either as authors, or the stories that aren't like me. Like, so I have been reading a lot of, like, queer literature, queer, history, but also thinking, like, because I need to learn more about that, right? But I also have been thinking, like, I need to learn more about the African American experience. I need to learn more about the Hispanic experience. And so trying to find authors that are, and to me, it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction, right? Like, you just get a different experience when you read different authors. So
I'm glad you say this, because for all of the tension and anxiety, for whatever reason, whether it be social change or technological change or our politics or the economy, whatever that people are experiencing, I think it's easy to get lost in our own kind of experience. But for all of that, what I will say is that we are also living through, I would almost call it like a Renaissance period of time where not only, because I believe this is true, that people from diverse backgrounds, people different than ourselves, have been writing and telling their stories since the dawn of time. But they're getting purchased now in a way that I think they haven't before. And that's not to pat anyone on the back.
Right.
But, these stories are much more accessible than they were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And for that, I am really grateful.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think when you read stories from folks that come from different backgrounds or have had different experiences, it's to me, it's also about the connection you can make with them, right? Because, there may be a part of it where, you've had such a different experience, but there's one thing that you can say, oh, well, that's similar to something that I experienced, or that's similar to something my family experienced, and I think it helps make those connections, which is what, makes us more human with each other, brings a humanity to each other. How do you, this is a real question. How do you feel about giving away books? Are you I read a book, I want to keep it because I'll read it again? Or are you I read a book, I'm going to lend it to somebody? Do you like to give books away? How do you feel about this?
First, I want to say it's fascinating that you started this or preface this by saying this is a real question.
For once on your podcast, Sean, someone's going to ask a real question.
The hard-hitting ones. This is actually a really good question. I am very much about, I do fight this pride of having these books that show, I think a bench, a depth of experience and knowledge. I do take a certain pride in that, but I think I'm a giver when it comes to books. What about you?
Yeah, I have become more of that. I mean, there are a couple of books that that mean something very special to me that I have for sentimental reasons, right? I want to keep, but for the most part, I had the same thing of ooh, I'm going to get these books and they're going to be, in my office or, show how well read I am. And then it became, this is really stupid.
Yeah.
That was a number of years ago. So when I moved out west, one of the things I did is I did the same thing. I took most of my books I left in DC with, at the office I had there. And so folks could use them. But now it is, unless it's something that really means something to me, and usually that means I bought it someplace. Like I have the Lord of the Rings book because I bought it in New Zealand before the movies even came out, right? So that means something kind of to me, there's a connection there. But otherwise, I tend to try to give books away once I've read them.
I think there was, I don't know what the psychology is here, but there was at an earlier era in my life, just this sense of having gotten these things. And then as I got older, I'm I'm never going to fucking reread these. As good as they are, I'm never going to reread them, right?
Right.
I was thinking the same thing. There are some books that have some type of special sentimental value to me that I would never give away.
Yeah.
All right. You ready for the next one?
Yeah.
What was the favorite movie you watched this past year?
Okay. So I have spent days thinking about this question. So let me preface it by saying I have not seen Wicked yet. So, I'm sure that I will love it, but I haven't seen it yet. So it can't go into the mix. My favorite movie that I watched this year did not come out this year, but I rewatched it a couple of times this year. And it is such an amazing film. And that is the first Alien, with Sigourney Weaver and just her kick-ass, take no shit attitude. The way that the movie was put together, the scenes when the Tom Skerritt's in the crawl space areas and just the beat, just all of it together is, I know what's going to happen in that movie. I know every single time the alien's going to be there, and every single time I jump. It's just so well done. So that is one I've watched probably 3 or 4 times this year. Just be oh my God, I got to see this again. And I hadn't watched it for years before that, and I really like that. I will say, I was really excited about the second Beetlejuice coming out, and I have rewatched the first Beetlejuice a number of times since then. Because I was not real happy with the second one.
Really?
I was not. Did you like it?
So, okay, first of all, I want to go back to Alien. So Alien Romulus came out this year. Did you watch that?
I have not seen it.
It was exactly what we expected it to be.
Yeah.
So I'm middle-aged. I think I am at that age where I don't get teenagers. And so let me say it this way. I think this movie probably did very well with teenagers. But as it relates to Beetlejuice,
Yeah.
so we, in anticipation of the sequel, watched the first, which I haven't seen or hadn't seen since I was a teenager, and Posh had never seen. And afterwards, I was like, that movie was not that good. Posh was like, I love that movie.
Of course.
But yeah, now it's a little disappointing. I don't know. Sequels rarely do live up.
I mean, it was cute. It just, I think they had too many plot lines. Like if they had like 3 or 4 different plot lines, and it's like if you just had 2 or 3, it would have been even better. But at the same time, it was fun to see. You know, it was a fun movie to see.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we did movies.
Mm-hmm.
You did your movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We just did that.
And at yours.
And mine. Maybe I did put something in this tea. Huh, I don't know. All right. Music. Favorite song, album, singer this year. What do you got?
Okay. I feel like I always do too.
Well, yeah.
The first is, did you ever hear the band James?
No.
Okay. You really struggled, didn't you? But we should clarify, though, that you really only listen to 80s pop.
Now 75% yes.
Okay. So James is this band out of the UK who made it really big on in the early 90s, they had this album called Laid, which played a lot on, well, now I know it was college radio, but to me it was just radio at the time. And
this story just gets better and better and better.
So they were very kind of your mellow grunge, right?
Okay.
Anyway, I mentioned Dublin a couple of years ago, and I went to London also a couple of years ago. And we, in our house, do a lot of vinyl shopping. And
I am well aware of the amount of vinyl that you all have in your house.
Yeah.
It is intense.
But like one of my favorite things to do is to go to other countries and do vinyl shopping, like in secondhand vinyl shops, because you never know what you're going to find. And they press a lot of stuff from the States there in other countries as well. And they have bands there that are much more prolific there than they are here and easier to find. Anyway, James was all over the place. And I was like, I should really listen to them. So I ended up deep into their back catalog, and they've been playing since like 1982, and they're still playing together. So I've been listening to a lot of James this year. And then the other is, I don't mean to keep putting you on the spot. Have you heard of Grayson Chance?
No.
Okay, so you might know this story though. He was a prodigy piano player singer when he was like 9 or 10 years old. He was on Ellen, and she offered him a music deal, like a record deal, and he said,
wow.
He said no.
Okay.
And he didn't make music from like the age of 11 to like the age of 19 or something. He's released music lately that is like the last few years, he's released an album a year or whatever. And it's just so unique. And it's like a little poppy, a little country, a little rock, a little experimental. I think he's just very unique given the music that's being produced these days. So I've been listening to a lot of him. Grayson Chance and James. Check them out. What about you?
Well, now I'm looking at Spotify to look up Grayson Chance. I've never heard of him.
He's adorable too.
Oh, okay. Well, that is one of the criteria for listening to singers. They have to be adorable. So surprisingly, there will be no 80s pop on my list.
That is surprising.
Right? I mean, believe me, it's still there in the background, but I do think it's, I want to just give a shout out to our friend Soda Cantor for his release of his album. Like, that was pretty cool to see a friend say, a number of years ago, I'm going to pursue country music and then do it and release an album, which is Don't Pray for Me. Folks are interested in checking it out. So I'm going to go full on middle-aged gay man here and say that the two singers and kind of albums or songs that have been on my playlist this year is Cowboy Carter by Beyonce. Like I know people have their, I know a number of the music critics that have issues with the album and all of that, but I just think that the way that she brought so many different genres together in a way that it's fun, it's like what to me some of country music is supposed to be, which is experimental and just kind of joyous. And I just really liked it. And anytime you can have Beyonce and Miley in the song as well, I just, my little gay soul gets happy. And then for some reason, in the last number of months, I've been listening to a lot of Celine Dion, and the song "Courage" is on almost every day. And you know what? I'm just taking it because she's got a great voice, and I love that song, and that's what helps me get through some stuff. So that's where I am. Nothing, I think that I remember in NPR a number of years ago said that if you stop listening to new music for about 6 months, like you'll never catch up. And so I stopped listening to new music for the most part, in the early 2000s. So my ability to know new music now is very limited, but
I'm the same. Did you see Celine's performance at the Olympics?
Did I see it? Yeah, it took me about 5 times before I could actually watch it without crying. I have tried to start the documentary, and I can't even make it like 5 minutes in without being like, okay, like, so I haven't even finished the documentary that she has.
I don't care what country you're from. She is your national treasure.
Right. 100%.
I was such a mess watching it, and I don't even know why. It snuck up on me because I like to think that I'm not excitable anymore. But I was like, do you understand the backstory here and where she came from?
Right.
And just how, like,
no, I do. I was there too. I was just like, she's singing again, and she's singing in the Olympics, and she's singing in Paris, and she's singing on the Eiffel Tower, and it's this beautiful dress, and her voice is amazing, and yeah.
I mean, let me just say on the record that Celine Dion singing "quote unquote" compromised blows most people out of the fucking water. Right.
100%. Like 100%. Like it is just, that is, her voice is truly an instrument, but it's like a magical instrument.
Yeah, it is a gift.
Yeah. It is so fascinating.
Okay. What was your favorite experience over the last year?
I mean, for all the travel that I get to do and all the things that people I get to meet and everything in my job and all of that, honestly, like my favorite experiences have been hanging out at home with my partner and with the dog, and like kind of getting to that we're just living, right? Like it's amazing to fly to, Europe for a couple of days for a concert. But the best part of that is actually coming home, which I know sounds really fucking cheesy, but I think that just that feeling is really, really nice.
I'm 100% on board with you. I have been feeling, I've actually been saying to people almost with like a sense of wonderment, which is maybe an indictment of who I was prior to this year in any capacity. But people are like, what's going on? What's going on in your life? How are you? What do you got coming up? Or, what's exciting that's happened? And I'm like, honestly, for everything that, we have done, and I've been fortunate enough to do quite a bit, is I just love kind of being at home, grabbing a book, cooking dinner, having a wine and just chatting with Posh or something, really. And I love where we live. And I love the people in my life, and I love the life that we built. I live in Seattle, and the sun is setting at 4:15, and we're anticipating between now and probably March, it's just going to be a lot of rain and no sun. And people complain about it. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I lighting a fire, lighting some candles, laying on the couch with a blanket and a book. It's just, I don't know. I'm really enjoying this part of my life, this aspect of my life. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I like that you say you live in Seattle. We all know you don't live in Seattle.
Well, yes.
But that's fine.
That's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. You know what the mistake I made is you live right here too. So
I know.
When you talk to people that don't live in this region, you say Seattle.
Right, 100%.
Yeah, but when you talk to people that live here, if you say you live in Seattle and you don't.
Yeah, right. But that's any place. Any place is like that, right? Like I remember when I first moved to DC and I said I lived in DC and people were like, no, you live in Virginia. And it was like, okay, it's across the river, but it's a different thing.
Yeah.
I like ending this that piece of you're right, like with everything that's going on, this year has been, difficult. I know for a number of folks, like when everything's going on and everything that, could happen, it's the being with the people that, you love and that love you and that you can just hang out with is really the best Christmas gift.
No.
To end it real cheesy. Hallmark movie stuff, right?
And yet we're not ending it, so.
Oh, God. I thought we were done. All right, well, save that for the end.
Okay. I'm totally not going to do that, but okay. That's too much editing.
That's too.
Do you know that I do that with some folks?
Oh, so you do that for other folks, but you don't do that for me?
No, because you're best when you're raw. And that sounds horrible.
Wow. How many glasses of wine have you had, Sean?
I don't count in glasses, Justin.
Right. That is also a very middle-aged thing. Like, I'm the same way. Like, I have it's one glass if it's a bottle, right? Because
or a box, whatever.
Well, if you're having one box of wine tonight, we should probably chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, agreed. No, not that bad yet.
Yet.
Well.
Okay. Favorite TV series that you've been watching?
The first is Maigret. It's a detective series that goes back decades.
Okay.
Of books that was translated into a number of different TV series. But the one that I've been watching has, believe it or not, Rowan Atkinson as the detective inspector.
Interesting.
I didn't know what to expect because, he's Mr. Bean.
Right.
And it's a very serious role. And so I was watching it and Posh came into the living room and he's like, oh, Mr. Bean. And I was like, actually, it's Maigret, Detective Maigret. And he's like, oh, is it like a comedy? And I was like, no. And he's like, I don't get it. And the thing is, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I was actually like IMDbing Rowan to see if he did anything else dramatic that I could see because it's so good.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find anything, but it's worth seeing. It's Maigret. Amazing.
Okay.
And there's only like 4 episodes, but each episode is a movie length.
Oh, okay.
And then the other that I've been watching is a British show called No Offense. And it's just 3 seasons long. And it's a police like procedural. Every series has its own arc.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cheeky and unconventional and yet serious at the same time. It's so well written and so well acted, and it's female led across the board. I just love it. I wish it had gone on. I wish it was going on forever. I love the characters. I love the stories. No Offense. Definitely.
Okay.
What about you?
So also sticking across the pond, Heartstoppers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. When I randomly, like one Sunday, 2 months ago, it was on Netflix or something, like as a, you might like this type of thing. And I started watching it and I was like, oh my gosh, how did I not know about this? It's just cute. And it's like this, obviously they're dealing with some heavy issues. Have you seen it?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
I've heard quite a bit about it though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's two kids and what would be our equivalent of our high school, right? become friends and then fall in love. And it's their whole experience of coming out and dealing with all of that. And then there's other issues that they have different, their friend group has that, it's that in some ways it's the quintessential teenage, kind of drama after school special type of thing in a way, right? But it's centered around queer folk, which it's really neat to see. And I kind of like, there's a part of me that as I was watching it was like, obviously I know it's fictional, it's made up, but like, I was in the closet when I was in high school, so I didn't have that experience, right? You couldn't have that openness. And so seeing that was just really kind of neat and thinking, I don't know, I just really fell in love with that show. It was just so cute. And then, the one that I'm excited about, and I hope that I don't get disappointed in is on HBO, which is Dune Prophecy.
Don't watch it.
No, I'm 3 seasons. I'm 3 episodes in. You think
you like it?
Well, I don't know. There's like this part of me. Maybe it's just because I so love the original, like kind of that, and like I know that the books get a little weird in the end, but so I don't know. Maybe I'm just holding on.
We watched the first episode, and both of us were like, "We can't do this."
But don't you do that with most series? I mean, most series. Okay.
If a series grabs me, I need it to grab me in the first episode. Otherwise, I'm like, I'm 48 years old. Like, I don't got time for this. Yeah.
Oh, see, I'm much more like they got to get me in the first probably 4, but right now it's okay. It's starting to get there.
Okay, is it?
Sean, I don't have a lot to look forward to, so I just got to go with what I can right now. Yeah, I really hope it does.
I don't even know what to say.
I don't know. What's funny though, I just finished. I can't believe I did. I just finished Game of Thrones for the 9th time.
The series.
I have now watched the series. I've now watched it more times than there's actually seasons for. But I also tend to put it on and then just fall asleep during it and like take 3-hour naps.
I was gonna say like middle of the day, right?
Yeah. But there are still cute parts. There are still good parts that you see, and you're like, this was a good show.
One of those actresses has a new series coming out where she plays like a chameleon, like she's a different character in every episode.
Ooh.
But I can't. Who's this is so horrible. The redhead.
Sansa Stark?
Yes.
Is I just thought, I was just thinking about this the other day, because at the end, when spoiler alert for everyone, when she becomes Queen of the North and she's in that fabulous dress, and I'm just like, why did they end the episode? I want to see more about her.
Well, she's back.
Oh, perfect.
I think it's called Joan or something.
Her name is, what is her name? Why can't I think?
You're looking it up?
Sophie Turner.
Yes.
All right.
I'm excited about that.
Joan.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I mean, also the other one that's going to come out soon is what is it? Is The Last of Us? The next series of that. So that I like that one.
That was so well written and so well acted, and I loved that it was kind of like every episode in its own way was a bit standalone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's the one episode with Nick Offerman and
So outside of the queer component to it, where do you come down on that episode?
First off, the Linda Ronstadt, like as the music behind this, like amazing. So you just got to put that out there. I think it was a really well done episode because it wasn't like, to me, that it was a love story. Like you could have put, it could have been 2 men, it could have been 2 women, it could have been a man and a woman. Like it was 2 people found themselves in this, ridiculous situation, right, that they're in, but that they had a life together. And I think any of those stories, because I think it's so, when you think about it, like when you find somebody, whatever the situation is around you and you make that connection, like that's just a beautiful thing for however long it lasts. So I really liked it. What did you think? If you say you didn't like it, then I think we're gonna have to re-examine our friendship. But
at first, my first reaction was like, what's the point of this episode? Right? Because it doesn't advance the storyline. You could cut that and have the same storyline.
You could, yes.
But I had a warm feeling to the episode. And then part of me was like, is it just because it's like gay guys? But the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking, I really appreciate this commitment when you don't have to, and maybe you probably shouldn't if you care about wokeness or cancel culture or money even. Like maybe you shouldn't do an episode like this, but the fact that they did shows just this commitment to telling stories that are a little outside of the mainstream, but could be devastatingly beautiful and meaningful to some people, right?
Yeah.
But in its own way, like I appreciate getting back to this, what I don't know, I'd call it like slow storytelling.
Yes.
Like it doesn't have to directly and immediately impact a storyline to impact a storyline, to give it like weight and to give culture to a story in a way that is beyond just the driving force, you know? And for that, I give it, well, here we go. 5 stars. I think it was like, it was so profound in that context. Yeah. And I appreciate it for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is onto something of like, you know, so much of our lives right now, right, is about, you know, the point A to point B as quickly as possible, right? You get your news alert on your phone, you read the headline, but you don't read the article, right? You're when you're driving, you're taking the fastest route, the route with the least traffic, whatever it is, right? Everything is about going so fast. And I do think there's something to be said about like our stories in our lives are not like that, right? They are slow and they take time and they deviate, and something beautiful happen even when it's not on the quote unquote path you're supposed to be on. And so I think you're right. Like them doing this was a really good, just deviation that was so beautiful, So one of the things that I have learned from this is that it's very difficult for us to stay within the year.
Yeah. That's okay. It's what we might experience this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's next. Like, is it my turn?
Sure. It can be your turn.
Okay. So what is one of your pleasant surprises this year? Something you didn't expect?
This sounds so how much I have just fallen in love with my fake godson. Some friends of mine recently had a baby, and they have said like, "Oh, you're the godfather," and we've laughed and everything about it. And like we went and visited them over Thanksgiving, and this kid is 5 months old and a pure bundle of joy and just laughter and like I was just like, holy shit. Like I don't want to have kids, but I get it. Like just and I didn't I have a niece and nephew who are now grown, and I'm very proud of them and I love them very much. And like my nephew graduated from high school and is starting college, and it's all very exciting. But that like little kid thing, like the little kids where you're just like, they are experiencing the world for the first time, and how like they can just be so energized by it. That was unexpected. I didn't expect to feel that way.
We have in our life, when we moved here, there's somebody we made quick friends with, and she had a son right after we moved here. So we've kind of been part of his life since, well, I don't want to say inception or conception, but since he was born.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
So he's 6 this year, and we've just watched him. I apologize to the people this might offend, but when he was, 1 to 3, I was like, oh God, this thing. Once he hit 4, his brain and the way he thinks and his excitement and energy and everything is new to him. And he's 6 now, and he can be such a pain in the ass. But at the same time, if we could bottle this and just give this to everybody as a reminder of like the wonder and joy of the world that is irrespective, not ignoring, but that is, I guess, exists in tandem with some of the horror that we, ingest every day could maybe level a playing field a little bit,
Yeah. No, I totally appreciate that. I mean, it was funny because as I was flying back from California and seeing my friends, like I was in the plane and I was like, it's amazing that I'm flying. I have to fly a lot for work, and it's like just that moment of like, maybe it was the couple of champagnes I had, maybe it was being around the kid, but it was that like there is wonder in the world, even when we don't think about it all the time. And I think that's why when you're around kids, like you said, like, them learning geography, and it's like, well, yeah, of course I know where Wisconsin is. I've known it for blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh my God, that's where Wisconsin is.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, what are you most looking forward to in a positive way in the next year?
Just full disclosure, the election was heartbreaking for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you've been following the podcast in any capacity, that like this is not the outcome that I wanted. And then I have true concerns about our future.
Mm-hmm.
Being said, I have found in people close to me a sense of compassion and empathy and resilience that I just didn't see before. I saw this in the queer community too. This sounds controversial to say, and you can call me out on it, but I feel like the queer community as a community was tighter and more supportive in periods of real oppression than we were in periods of real liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is an indictment to some degree, not just of the queer community, but just of dominant society, which is when you are living in periods of liberation, that does not absolve you of a responsibility to take care of the less fortunate or of the most oppressed people. And I think that has happened.
Yeah.
I think this transcends, race, creed, religion, sexual orientation, etc. And that's not to say that also we should have societies that delineate oppression from liberation so that people can have a sense of community. But I have found that since there has been a reinvigoration of people really coalescing around what it means to be community and what it means to be in community with each other. And I've noticed that just in the last 4 weeks since the election, that kind of coalescence. And I'm really enjoying it. And so I'm kind of looking forward to answer your question, I'm kind of looking forward to like, where does this go? Like, can we build something lasting and permanent and enduring out of this that really leads to something that is, I don't know, hopeful and something we can build on that brings us, not just political satisfaction, but a personal and individual sense of fulfillment in our lives that I think might be lacking. And I know that probably sounds, I don't know, rehearsed, but it's not. What about you?
It doesn't sound rehearsed at all. It sounds very genuine, and I really appreciate it. I think you're right. There's in the day-to-day of life, I think we forget what it actually means to live, right? And I think that when we have experiences that allow us to take a step back and say, what really is important is, being with my friends or my family, or, going, out for a walk with the dog, or, versus answering another email, right? Like, I think that, we as humans weren't made to do this day to day that we've forced ourselves into. And I think that anytime we get an experience, right, and anytime we get an opportunity to really reconnect with people, it brings us back to being human again. So I really appreciate that. Sean, I mean, if you'll have me back, I'm looking forward to next year, because I really want to see if we can answer a question with just one favorite thing, and B, if there'll be anything that the kids would recognize in any of our answers, because I think we've hit the age where we're just old now.
Wait, you're wiping out this entire episode. What you're saying is nothing we talked about will resonate with anyone under a certain age. Is that what you're saying?
That's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well,
But maybe,
more power to the Middle Agers.
more power. Yes. I mean, I do feel like Gen X needs to, we need to take some of our power back.
Isn't that funny though? Like when we were coming up, everyone was talking about Gen X. And now no one talks. It's baby boomers and then straight to Y.
Yep. They're like, Gen X, whatever. What did you guys ever do?
We had a huge cultural impact, didn't we? Early 90s? Huge.
I mean, yeah, baggy jeans and grunge music. What was our impact?
Okay. That sounds like it really diminishes it. But I mean, Pearl Jam, Nirvana.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I mean, any musician today that says that Nirvana didn't have some impact on them, fuck you.
Yeah. I understand. I get it. But
Anyway, Justin.
Yeah.
What's the holiday message you want to send?
Just Sean, I just want to say I think your podcast is really excellent, and I mean that not just because you have me on it, but I've seen it grow over the last number of years, and the series you did this summer was really, really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that grows for you. And I just hope that everybody has a very safe and happy Christmas and holidays, and that hold on to each other, because that's what we're here for.
I mean, it's really what we got at the end of the day, right? Like if you cut everything out, like what we have at the end of the day is each other. This is a moment where we need to embrace each other. I agree 100%.
Yeah. And I think, Sean, I really think that I think there are more people in the world that want to embrace each other than force people off a plank. And I think we just have to find, what's the quote? Find the helpers.
Oh, yeah. In a crisis, look for the helpers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have been a helper to me.
Oh, thank you, bud.
Bud.
That's such a Midwestern response. Thank you.
Thanks, bud.
Oh, this is also like a Midwestern goodbye, right? I'm like standing in the doorway, like, okay, we're gonna leave, and we keep chatting.
Anyway, so like happy holidays to everybody, right?
Yep. Happy holidays, everybody.
All right, that's it for us. I hope you've enjoyed hearing some of our favorite things here at Deep Dive, and that maybe we've given you some things to check out when you have some free time. I genuinely hope that this holiday season, whether you're celebrating something or not, is peaceful, gentle, kind, and relaxing. So from our house to yours, happy holidays. And check back next week for our final episode of the year, when we'll be bringing you our annual State of the Union with friends of the pod, Dr. Sarah Benish, to discuss the state of the American judiciary and the Supreme Court, Dr. Edward Watts to discuss how the fall of Rome can inform the current state of our American Union and what might be coming down the pike, and Dr. James Hawden to discuss the state of political violence in the United States, how it's evolving, and if we need to start building safe rooms in our houses. Chat soon, folks.